What's going on, everybody? Cheers, happy Wednesday, and welcome to this week's edition of Trades Lady Happy Hour. I am super excited to be joined this week by the lovely Lisa Pine Schoonmaker. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We've not actually met in person, but we're Instagram friends, and I've spoken with her briefly. I think this is going to be a really great happy hour. As usual, while we wait for her to join us, all of the previous happy hours all live on my Instagram TV tab. So if you've missed them and you want to catch up on the past ones, you can definitely do that. And this one will be also recorded and will be posted over there shortly as well. And Miss Lisa is a welder and a weld instructor. So she is a certified structural weld instructor and weld inspector. She is also sits on the board for the American Welding Society, and does a ton of other really cool things. She does a lot to support women in the trades and support the trades in general, and I'm really excited to be joined by her. Hopefully she'll be joining in soon. I don't see a request from her quite yet. We're gonna see if she is on here yet. Let's see. Sparks or what that means that she is on technology. She should be joining us shortly. Hi everybody, thanks for joining in, and hello, how are you?
Oh, good. It's so fun to be here.
Yay.
I might be more excited than you are, but
You're adorable. And you're in the shop right now.
Yeah, I am. This is let me see. The welding shop. There's more that I can show you later, but
Okay.
but because the roll-up doors are up, but we have some pretty good equipment and such, and we have an auto department right next door. So plenty of lifts and, a lot of training going on there. So I am getting into that more and more.
Into automotive?
And absolutely. I know. It's been one of those things that I've thought, well, God, I have to focus on all this. There's so much stuff that I have to do between education and welding.
Right.
And so it's like, I go into automotive and I'm like, oh my God, I really respect how much is there. And I just don't want to take that lightly. But
I feel the same way in the reverse, by the way. Like I feel the same way. Like I grew up with mechanical, and I'm like dipping my toe in the last couple of years into paint and body and welding and metal fabrication and all of this stuff. I'm like, I have so much to learn, and I need all of the toys and the tools, and I want to do everything. Like, I want to do everything.
Right? Everything. That's the I cannot narrow it down. It's all I can do to just like put my blinders on and look at the little weld pool.
Right.
That's the thing I can do, right? Oh my God. So many fun things to do. And you have all that's why you get all these ladies around who have all the skills that can contribute. It's just, one of the fun reasons I love being just in the, sort of a building industry building related industry, however we, orient ourselves. But it's, but yeah, God, there's so many fun people to do things with and so many crazy things to do.
I agree. So let's catch everybody up a little bit for people who don't know you. I see a bunch of names here that I'm not familiar with, so maybe some of your folks are following along, which is awesome. Thank you. Welcome everybody thank you for joining. So tell us a little bit about what do you do first and foremost, and then we'll go back in time and talk about how you got here.
Yeah. I am a community college structural welding instructor. So I do TIG, MIG, oxyacetylene, flux core. I forgot anything else. There's a few others. So I train people to become welders in the welding industry. And it's a community college, so it's a private place. or rather a public institution, which is super fun right now with COVID and everything. But we're still doing some classes. I mean, it might come up later because wow. But anyway, that's where I've been, and I have been in the past. I've been teaching for about 17, 18 years, but I've also worked at science museums. I've worked at optical switch research facilities and run their machine shops. I've done work for, the municipal transit system, trying and rebar to train tracks. And I've been on TV a couple of times, some weird build shows. And so it's a really a pretty broad base. And I have the feeling that we might have some things in common that are sort of outside what either of us usually do.
Probably.
So
I'm sure we will uncover some of those as we move along through this.
We might. There's so many.
How did you become a welder? How did that journey start for you?
That one, I've tried to narrow this down a little bit, and it's, forgive me if I get long in this, but it was mostly through art, because I was at university, because that's what good white collar girls did in the 80s, so I was taking all these classes. It was just everything from humanities to sociology to calculus, physics, chemistry, yada yada, and it was kind of like, oh my God, I love this all so much. And at the very end, I thought, well, my God, art is really where that all kind of comes together, and how I understand it, and where I can really explore these things. So great. And then I heard the term permanent materials, which is like, instead of being a super conceptual artist that works in the ephemeral, which was the thing back in the day, what if I worked in steel? What if I worked in stone? These things that can outlast the human body and demand a lot of you, both physically and intellectually. So, I thought, my God, my ideas, like, I want to kind of like bounce my ideas off these materials. You know what I mean? It's like, I want that demanded of me. So I promptly moved to the Bay Area, where there were more artists, and one of my favorite art groups ever was working, who I wanted to get involved with and eventually did, is Survival Research Labs, or SRL.org. I think I'm going to post some of this past on my my direct feed in the next few days, because it's kind of hard to describe and super fun. So anyway, they work with, they did these big performances in like parking lots and under bridges and abandoned factories. And it was all these like radio controlled machines that they had created that were usually bigger than a car. And sometimes, they're made out of construction equipment. They're made out of military equipment. That's really Frankensteined into some like inexplicable thing that can move and also pick things up, and maybe they battle each other, maybe they look at things together, and you're never really sure what's happening. So awesome. It's really weird. And so I was super excited to get involved in that. And so I showed up there, and the director just said, okay, well, I need this radiator taken off of this V1 jet engine. Here you go. And handed me the socket wrench. I didn't know what the hell a socket wrench was. And he's like, the bolts come off counterclockwise, and so I'm like, I had no, it's good. I had no reference that, how weird this machine was. But anyway, the radiator works the same. So what, I had this like, it might have been, a 2-minute to 40-minute job. And I don't want to know how long it was. Over an hour that I was sitting there, like, trying not to blow something up and just taking off 6 freaking bolts and, or something. Anyway, I was hooked that, I got that done, and it was like, wait, what? not only did they think I could do it, oh, how nice. Oh, yeah, you can. Go, go, go. It was like, no.
It was
Like,
assumed, yeah.
you assume, like, this is not complicated. It wasn't one of those places where, oh, you're a girl, you probably wouldn't understand why I have to charge you and, an arm and a leg for something that doesn't need to be changed on your car. It was like, oh, no, 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 no. You have stuff. Let's go. And so I was like,
get in there and do it, figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. And it was like no one had demanded that of me in an environment like that. And I was just there from, I was the bad penny. I was there every day when they wanted me, when they didn't want me. I didn't care. I needed to know. So knowing that, I'm like, oh, I better get some welding classes under my belt, because in my mind, oh, welding means everything machining, which has nothing to do with it. Anyway, whatever. I it was like, oh, you weld, oh, you must know how to fix cars. It's like, so anyway, much to my chagrin, anyway, so I take this welding class at this community, it was a community college. It was just this little satellite, like automotive and welding, old school. It'd been there since the 50s, I think. Now it's like $1 million loft space in the middle of San Francisco. Oh, wow. And I would just ride my bike there with my grinder in my backpack, every other day to show up and try and weld. And I just had no idea. I thought, like, okay, you'll do it for a few weeks, you'll get frustrated, you'll leave. But good for you for trying. And the first 2 weeks were like that. And then all of a sudden, it was like, I saw the weld pool, I saw the arc, I knew what I was doing. And I was like, this is like cooking, or like blah, 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 or like blah, blah, blah. I mean, just the metaphors just flew in, and I was like, fine. And here I am. I quit my job in film. And and that was kind of the end of that. And I don't think, years and years of people not thinking I would follow through, years and years of people thinking I wouldn't like it, wouldn't handle it, that it was some fantasy, and it was just obsessive. And the people I got to work with were a big part of that. And that's something I don't think is, something that a lot of young women know about these industries, is that you're going to have so much fun. You're going to work with fascinating people. You're going to be intellectually challenged. You're going to make probably a lot of money, and then sometimes not. But my God, it's such a, at least when you're coming up, it can be really wild. But, speaking for myself, but, I had choices. But it's such a valuable place to be. And I couldn't be happier with having pursued it and gotten halfway good at it, and just, oh, hi, I get to work on a jet car. I get to work on a, whatever, train station. I get to work on, your daily driver. It's, I get to make your weird little, furniture idea. It's amazing. So.
Oh, it's incredible, especially with welding. I think unlike some of the other kind of automotive adjacent trades, right? Because there's a lot of adjacent trades to automotive, but welding is one where welding is one where you're gonna meet so many different people, because it's so applicable to so many, like you can do it in so many different ways. You can be a pipe welder, you can be an artistic welder, you can be a structural welder, you can be an on the line, just
Pinkies out,
production
clean room, aerospace.
Right.
It's
aerospace welding, right?
You want to be really detailed, like really clean. We got a welding job for you. You want to go up 60 stories at 5:30 a.m. and look at the view. We got a job for you. I love that. It's everywhere.
There's an interesting point too in like what you said about the people that you worked with being such a big part of you, like falling in love with it. And I think you're right. There are tons of amazing people you'll get to meet, and at the same time, like who you work with at your first job kind of can often discourage people if you're not in a good environment. And I think, like, to encourage the young people out there, if the first environment that you find yourself in isn't a fit for you, find someplace else, because there is
That's just your
there's
first
so much out
job.
there.
It's like, congratulations, you're on your way.
Right.
It's really true because, it's complicated. And people are complicated and, life, it's true with any job, I think, but especially in blue collar right now, you just don't have the heritage of, well, it depends what community you're in, but so often there are people who are getting into it who don't have a family background or don't have a community background based in it. And so I see a lot of that just kind of like oh, wow, like I'm coming from square one, related to how to operate in this environment, personally and culturally.
Yeah.
So
that was me when I started.
Expect that to happen and just be like, okay, well, no, you're not going to be okay maybe when it happens, but
right, but okay, next, like move on, go someplace else.
Right, getting to that point, growth mindset of this is a challenge, not a setback. This is a this just means it's working. You feel sick, good. That's where it's working. Yeah, it's like an inoculation.
If you don't feel a little sick in your stomach, you're not trying hard.
Right. Oh my God. And everybody, even the people who are in that, in that field feel that all the time. That's not bad. That's not a sign that, you shouldn't be there.
So of all of the crazy different jobs that you've had and done and different types of welding you've done prior to teaching, what's been your favorite?
Come on, Bogi.
Is that an unfair question?
Kind of, but you know what? I kind of do have one. And it's the time I worked for a short time, just a few months, with Craig Breedlove on his jet car project. It was for an ultimate land speed record that was going to take place in 1996, 1997. And, I was a crew member just, doing extra stuff, support work for them. And there was a lot of people who knew, the car itself a lot better than I did, or the parts of the car. But it was amazing because it really, to me, that was a lot of history. The land speed records and the people that did that were a big deal to me growing up. And I didn't know as much about it as I did when I got older. And I'm like, oh my God, to meet these folks, it would be really something. And just what it takes to be a part of a project that is just, you're building the ship as it's being sailed. You're going where whatever, man has never gone before, humans, I guess, let's say that. And so what's going to happen to the car? What's going to happen to the driver? Should it be this big or this big? Does it matter? Where's the weight supposed to be? And how do we get it down the road? It has to be, Department of Transportation specific, or we have to arrange for other permits. And what's the value in that? And one jet engine or two, these are questions that you want to have, you know what I mean? And it's just happening in the garage with a bunch of people. And, in this case, it was a really tiny crew. It was very old school that way. And so it was constantly just these strange, fascinating situations you had to work your way out of every day, or mostly someone else did, and I just watched. But then I had a few things that I had to do, but that was just kind of like I was taking notes constantly. It was so exciting. And he didn't originally, he didn't, get that record. The English did with their SST, two Rolls-Royce engines, like I think 5 times the weight of the Spirit of America.
Oh wow.
Whatever, so that was, it was what it was, but it's also what it took to break the sound barrier on land for the first time as humans. And this sort of startup, just we're going there now mentality that got America to the moon. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
That's pretty
So
phenomenal to have been able to be a part of.
yeah, you could tell I liked it.
No, not at all. It sounded horribly boring.
Yeah, it was. And it, it was totally frustrating all the time too. It's like I hated half the people on it. They hated me. Whatever. But I remember it so fondly. So I hope people will get into those situations too. Like I shouldn't be here. Nope. But here I am.
But here I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a great attitude to have. Did you, because I definitely encountered that a lot through my career coming up. Like, you're not welcome here, you're not wanted here.
Wow.
And I think there's less of that now, but I know it still exists, right? I hear enough stories
Right.
from women in the trades who are point blank told, I'm never hiring a woman, you don't belong here, I'm not okay
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
Did you encounter a lot of that, and how did you handle it?
I the issues I've had have never been really point blank. They've always been super subtle. A lot of things that I found out later, you know, that project I just described included of the strange things that people thought about me because they were real ignorant about what I might be, and just the weird shock of that subtle sense of unease, and you can't pin it down. And there's there's that, and then there's just I love my rep at Airgas right now, and he calls me kiddo. And I'm just like, dude, I am about 5 years younger than you, and you call me the guy who's 15 years younger than me kiddo.
Right.
It's amazing. And
at least he's not
like,
calling you
really,
sweetie.
it's the same.
I know. It is.
It's the same. It was so funny. One of my students, oh my God, when I was teaching high school level at the ROP, there's a student who told me, please, could you not call me sweetie? It kind of makes me uncomfortable. This guy. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's
a subtle thing, but it's
and I meant well, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that just mean well, but it's still kind of like, I'm just trying to I don't know what you understand. I don't know if you hear the words coming out of my mouth. That is the weird thing. Like, am I communicating with you? But
yeah, it's interesting. I think the subtle stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the subtle stuff. Yeah.
It's harder to deal with, I feel like. I feel like the subtle stuff is harder than the point blank. When somebody point blank says to me, you don't belong here, I'm like, okay, except I am. So, right?
Where
the
you stand.
Subtle, it's harder. It's harder to work with.
You don't know where it is, and it's just a weird moving political target. And bleh. My sister was this crazy punk rocker in the 80s as well. She moved to New York City, and she had this super drag queen look with like blue hair and whatever else. And she would come home to San Diego at the time, and she said it was horrible because she could tell that people were just either fascinated or repulsed, but wouldn't say anything. And in New York, they just in your face, you weirdo, what the hell? She's like, oh, well, okay, whatever. I know what I'm dealing with. And then it was just this, people being nice.
Totally. It's
and that's,
so true.
I think, it's a tough thing right now,
I grew
across
up
America.
In
Oh,
yes. So
nice.
I got my start as a technician in New York, and my very first dealership job, I worked with a bunch of old school New York guys that were not okay with me being there and told me straight to my face, And as rough as it was, I grew to appreciate it because I learned, like, if you're not talking ish to my face, you're talking ish behind my back. And I'd way rather have you talk ish to my face, right? Because then I know where you stand. I know where I stand. We're all good. I know you don't like me. I can move on and get over it. And then I moved to the West Coast, to Arizona, and worked at a dealership here. And it was a totally different world. It was nicey nice to your face. And then,
and surprise behind your back.
Yes.
Oh my God. There you go. That's, I'd much rather. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite a compliment when they're willing to tell you what they think. They respect you enough to actually convey that, or, maybe it's just cultural, but you can sense that. It's kind of like the, a martial art, you have a fight and then you bow respectfully. It's like, okay, you honor me enough to have a fight. That's that's a big deal for me.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's just like when I have political issues at work, a lot of times I'm saying, I'm not trying to get everybody to get along. I'm just I just want to make sure that we know how to fight each other and say, and bow respectfully at the end.
Respectfully, yes.
Yeah, it's like, can we handle a confrontation? And
we can disagree and then go out for a beer afterwards, and that's okay. Like, we don't have to.
Right. That's half the fun. Those are the memories, right?
Yeah.
That's really where it's at.
So for you personally, because I think there's a lot of younger women getting into the industry. I think there's a lot more women coming into these fields than there were when you came up, when I came up. I think we're seeing a lot more of it. And I hear often from the younger women this, like, how do I deal with it when they don't want me there? How do I deal with the subtle or overt sexism that they experience? How did you personally deal with it, and what allowed you to kind of persevere through and succeed?
In retrospect, it's about the people you surround yourself with, inside or outside of work, that support you. And, especially, I think, it's silly, but it's Instagram has connected me with more women on the job than I have ever had in my life. And I think I just got on Instagram a couple of years ago, and I'm kind of like, what?
Blown away,
I mean,
right?
It's the biggest thing. And so you can go online and you have a sense, you can find some camaraderie. You can hear other people, maybe they're complaining or whatever, but it's really safety in numbers. And it's not just numbers of women, but other men that support you, because they do. I think that most men do. And at this point, there's some serious issues still, of course, and there's even physical issues. But find the good guys, whether they're guys or girls. And that's who have the values you do, and have that community to fall back on. And to the extent that you have women who are in your same industry or even your same company or employer, that's a big deal too. Whether they are a someone who does your job or someone who does a different job, there's still a cross reference there of just a sense of sanity.
Yeah.
Because
so
if you want to do this job,
out there,
yes.
All those good guys that are out there listening to this, like, your voices are so important too. Like, women in this industry need to know that if they are dealing in a shop that isn't supportive and isn't cool, just knowing that you exist out there and that you're supporting women in the trades and that it doesn't faze you whether they're male or female, like, that knowing you exist could be the thing that changes whether they stay in the industry or not. So you guys are important, very important.
Yeah. Or just, how well the job goes. Because it's someone who is under stress like that and feels that they're not wanted, or that they that people don't expect them to do good job is going to have a much harder time psychologically actually doing that job. This is not any fantasy of anybody's. That's true regardless of who you are. And so if you want that job done and you believe in that job, God damn it, support everyone on that job. That's, that's just the way it is. And if you don't like someone on that job or don't appreciate someone on that job, I don't know, maybe that's an interesting thing that you can bring you back in the morning. Like, what the hell's going on with that guy? Whatever. It's not always easy too. It's like, it might be a pain in the ass. Do you care about the job? Do you? Yeah. That's the main issue with that, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, beautifully said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody commented earlier that they want you to write a book because they love your stories and all the things that you did. And I have to say, I agree. I don't remember who said it now. I just saw it really quickly as I was scanning the comments. I was like, yes, she does need to write a book.
It might, I would need one hell of an editor. It'd be like the most wide, right? I should write down some of the things before I forget them, because man, that memory is going.
I feel you.
Right. Oh my God. Whatever.
So how did you get to teaching? When did that start?
I wound up teaching because a friend of mine was leaving her teaching job and said, we need a good replacement. And so, I was one of a few people that went up for that job, and I actually got it. But I had been laid off by the aforementioned, optical switch research place. And so it was like, oh shit, my husband was away in Iraq on deployment, and I'm like, I gotta get a job. And so I kind of took it because it was there. And no one who gets into teaching understands what they're getting into at all. And so I just had to survive. There were great times, there were horrible times. It was one of the most stressful times. My first year of teaching was one of the most stressful times of my life. And it's, you see people going through it now, like, whatever. It's like, I know how to weld, and I'm gonna teach. And but I mean, the demands on you from the students, in this case from their parents as well, because they were under 18, it was high school, from the administration, the amount of mandated reporting, the amount of paperwork. Oh my God, I didn't get into welding to do paperwork. And it's just hours, and trying to organize it all, and which is the highest priority right now. Sometimes you days like today, quite frankly, I had a day where I'm like, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. But you know why. And in a few minutes, or, in 25 minutes, I'm going to have all these people walk in the door, and I'm going to crack up, because I'm going to make them crack up because I need it. And, and a few of them are going to learn something, and I'm going to watch that happen. And that's cool. I always know why I'm here. I always know that this is, that it's valuable, that I'm contributing to society in general. It feels meanoful. Whoops.
Oh.
Going off I'm drinking water, and I'm going off the stool. I mean, it's not even how I got into teaching, but why do I stay? Why? It's just the most, I get paid okay. I'm not going to complain too much about that, but it's also just really super demanding on you and your family. And there's no other way around it if you're going to deliver what you need to deliver, and the level of quality you want to do. And I don't know, people need to learn. I love my industry. I want to produce really good welders. That's a really big point of pride. I really want, when my biggest goal is to have a student go out there and make so much more money than I make in the first year. It might be a little but you know what I'm saying? Like in 5 years, I want them to out earn me. I want them to be in a job where they have a lot of room to grow. That it keeps them stimulated. In being interested in it. That supports their family, and just to be part of the big group that makes up a really what I found to be a really heartfelt industry. That you put your helmet down all day, but people really care about each other. Can I say that? Is that like allowed?
No,
Am I going to be kicked out of the welding club for saying that?
No, I agree with you. I have found the welding community to be far more accepting of women, to be far more accommodating and welcoming, and much more of a family. Really, I agree with you. It's an interesting conundrum because, like you said, you're spending the whole day with your hood down, and yet I found the welding community to be an incredibly welcoming community.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah, I think, what is it? I mean, with welding, you're really taking material through phase change and you're doing it by hand every day. I mean, there's a million other jobs in the welding industry that have nothing to do with it, but the concept where that's really happening of joining materials by making them the same metallurgically, it's a little bit fantastical. It's a little bit like, I don't know. There's a sense of the mystical or the, you can get a little romantic about it. And I think that that might be part of it, but it attracts some really interesting characters for sure. That's true. But and we get to work with everybody. So we see a lot of different people, like you said. And so that's fun. And we just, I don't know. I can't speak for us all. We're also different. But,
right. Of course. So now you're at a community college now. You're at a community college now.
In California. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of, especially in California, that's kind of one of the few places to really learn the trades. Like I said, we have automotive right next door. You have some private places like UTI, Universal Technical Institute. There used to be WowTech, but they're very expensive and they're pretty far afield. There aren't a lot of them. So a lot of you're either going into the unions or you're going to the community colleges or both. And I'm really proud of the role that we play in supplying not only the people who do the blue collar work, but also eventually the white collar work. Every now and then you get a student who goes into engineering. This is just part of it, and it's a blast. Or a student that probably should be in engineering, and you can convince them to do it. Like wow, because you have the academics right there.
Totally. I want to acknowledge and you can get a degree too. Right? Absolutely. I want to acknowledge you as well as an instructor. I mean, we talk about the trade deficit and the trade gap and how we need more welders and technicians and electricians, and we need more of all of the trades. And I think what's not often talked about is how we need more instructors too. That there's this huge gap in trades instructors, and that we need more of you, and you are doing a wonderful service for the industry in raising up the next generation. So I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. And it's tough because there are hoops to go through. I mean, to teach at a community college, you need to at least be able to have a community college degree, because you need to understand what those people are going through and how they need to communicate, the math they need, whatever. And then you have to have, experience in the industry as well. And And so it kind of winds up being this weird unicorn thing of who do we find that has these qualifications? And what we're really working on now is trying to get some level of equivalency of like, okay, you've worked for the municipal water department doing welding for 30 years. You're ready to retire. Like, we want you to teach that, that particular pipe welding or whatever. And if you don't have the degree because you've been working, can we consider that equivalent? And so there's a bit of a fight about that, and making sure that there are really good people available who want to teach, who can, pick up the other stuff, or who have already learned it just on their job, and making sure that they're available to work. It can be a little tricky. I mean, there's the welding industry is more challenging than just one kind of job. So being able to teach to such a broad range.
I imagine, yeah.
I'm not, it's hard. Like, where do you put that argument? But there's room, and I think that hopefully it will be developing to the extent that we can just promote manufacturing in general, and manufacturing, people from the manufacturing industry, employers and companies, to the extent they can get involved with us. That's, I think, where things can really start moving, because then you have a lot more information about what the students need to learn, and what might be something that they're going to learn on the job instead. So if there's anybody representing the industry out there, or from the American Welding Society, yes, that's really what the schools need right now, is industry support. Both, get on the advisory committee, check out what equipment we have that you would, that you always also use. What, are you interested in what we're teaching people? I mean, just initiate contact with your local college, and you're going to get some people that are really receptive to anything you have to say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure you deal with that. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. How do you how are you seeing enrollment? Like, is there interest? Are you filling seats? Are we getting butts in the seats in these classes and programs?
Right. Yeah. Now with COVID, it's really weird. What we've done is adapt to more of a like mixed up lab situation, so people can work around their schedule a little more.
Okay.
It has its drawbacks, to be honest, but we have good enrollment right now, which is really great. Trying to keep all of the classes in a welding program filled, that is, some will always fill, some just have a hard time, some just don't, you just don't have that. There's a need in industry, but there's not a lot of, it's specialized enough, like pipe welding, that you have to get to a certain level before you're even qualified to start taking those classes, and just getting people to persist through the program. It's complicated. You can attract them, but can you keep them? And and do you want to?
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting question, and I feel like it's a question all of our industries, welding, automotive, like all of these trades that are experiencing a trade deficit, we find ourselves asking a lot. Like, is it that we're not attracting people? Is it that we're not retaining people? Are we not getting them through school? Are we losing them once they enter the industry? Like, where is that gap happening? What are you finding are your higher rates? Like, the kids that graduate from your program, are they getting jobs?
Yeah. They are. It's harder to track because they disappear, and we have to find mechanisms to better get that. You might be familiar with that situation. And since obviously the welding industry is so broad, they could be anywhere. So there's still that. A lot of times it's interesting. I'll have some students have come back to me and said, I'm not in the industry, but I use what I learned in welding all the time. Now, whether it's, it's just, sometimes that's, and, someone in engineering, but sometimes that's just someone that, is off doing something else, but they just kind of, you learn more than just the trade when you take a trades class. And that's, and they take that out of there. So I appreciate that. It's hard to say. Some people just get better jobs in general after they take one of the trades classes, because it's really vocationally oriented, and maybe they haven't, they've only taken academics before now, and this is so about how are you showing up on a job? How do you work with other people? What do you actually produce, and what is this really demonstratable thing that you're doing, right, besides a paper that someone is grading, probably very well, but also seemingly subjectively, like I say, like I speak for the metal. The metal's going to tell me what your grade is, right? So there's something really just outside of that a lot of people don't get, especially in the white collar world. It's always the assessment of someone else. It's not the assessment of the product itself directly related to how you did it.
Right.
So
much more objective.
Yeah. And just, is it there or isn't it? There's go, no go, that people really learn from and can benefit from.
I think you're right. There's a ton of like the softer life skills that you learn from going through a trades program. And
absolutely.
That's very different than what you learn going to a college or a liberal arts degree, or
right.
It's just, and not that either is better or worse, right? Like four-year college isn't worse than trade school. Trade school isn't worse than four-year college. They're just very different.
Both. That's they can be, and but they present different things for you. They demand different things of you, and for me, having to work on something that's sort of unforgiving. God, that's. I think everybody should do it. I really would like to see this, not just a makerspace, which are nice, but a lot of times have a lot of automated equipment in there. Like to really have to get your hands on and build something that in, whatever, old school fashion, non-digitally.
I agree.
I want that. I want that in every university program. I want it in the high schools. I want it in the elementary schools, everywhere.
Cheers to that. Like, amen, for multiple reasons, right? Your water, my whiskey. Cheers.
Yeah,
that works.
I got to teach.
Yeah, totally. I think that's fair. For so many reasons, I feel like everybody should be getting exposed to this, because part of the reason why we're not attracting enough people to our industry is a lot of kids don't even know that it's a career path option for them, and they might be a great fit for it. But I also think, yes, 100%. And then there's this other element of what the life lessons you learn working with metal. I've been a mechanic for 20 some odd years now, but working with metal, amazing. Oh my gosh, I learned so many things about myself and about life in working through metal, and learning how to deal with this, making something from scratch out of nothing in these old school ways that you're talking about, non-digitally, there is something that is life-changing about, yes, there's something life-changing about it, absolutely.
When, the rare times that I've worked on my car, it's just like, I put my hand on a bolt, and the information that comes through my fingers blows my mind. How do I know? It's just, somehow like it, I don't care. This is my brain now, and I'm going to investigate things.
Yes.
Oh my God. It's so intense. And that's, I think, I was whine about the Cartesian separation between mind and body. But really, I mean, people really need to start getting their hands on things that aren't their phone. They need to try and wrestle some carbon-based shit into submission. I'm telling you.
Preach. Speaking of, you're going to be teaching in like 10 minutes, right?
I guess so. Yeah, I'm looking at the clock, making sure.
We're getting there. Are we going to get to meet your students really quickly?
Maybe I should see if, I don't know if anybody's out there right now, but you know what? I should open the door. And why don't I just
maybe show us around the shop a little bit while you're doing it?
Yeah, why don't I just sort of wander here?
All right.
The whiteboard's clear, like which is so unreal. Here, okay, so
it looks like a pretty large space you have.
It's pretty small, but it's packed and nice. We have these I'm trying to see live arc machines from Miller so virtual reality. You know, we don't use it that much, but I think it's cool. You know, I think once we get people anyway, it's got amazing options. We just got this, now I'm representing Lincoln with the Torchmate, the big plasma cutter. That's our new baby. We have to get trained. So, we got to hook up a bunch of stuff. But then, so let's go.
That is not a small space. You got that's a nice amount of space.
We got some stuff. Hi. Oh, I don't have my Mac. This is our first. I'm on Instagram Live. Do you mind?
Oh no, you're good.
Come on in. So I know I should put up a thing, but yeah. So we've got a lot, TIG, MIG, Oxy right there. A lot of some multi-purpose machines. Some really, the Dynasties, and we got the Synchro Waves, the Millermatics, the Track Torch.
It's a great space. My goodness, I love it.
And then some fabrication. This is something that wasn't at the school where I used to be.
Okay.
Like iron workers and benders and brakes, and there's always junk on junk because of the footprint. But we have a lot of opportunity to just build stuff, and that's not that's hard to build to make into a welding program. And I'm like, you have to put it together. And we've got it's all nice and clear. Look, we have a lift.
I love it, and it's so clean.
Isn't that weird? We've just had a holiday, so we've all been.
Oh.
I swear I didn't clean just for you, but this is usually not how clean it is. So let me see if I can get into what you might like better. Here.
Uh-oh.
Here we are.
Oh, I like it all.
And we have a
what a crazy, incredible program you guys have going. These spaces are phenomenal.
So, isn't this great?
This is so good to see, Lisa. Oh my goodness.
Isn't that nice? And I could take you. There's there's Incubase and all kind of. Oh my God, there's so much more. But all these tools, wouldn't you like to okay, this is probably why I'm in teaching. The toys.
The tools.
The toys. I have a forklift and a winch. Oh, look at my hydraulic bender right here. Wait, am I doing that?
There
we are.
Awesome. I love it. And we hear so much about
so it's hilarious. Anyway.
It's so cool to see how well equipped you are and how nice of a space you have, that there are great programs still, and that's awesome. That's good to see.
Yeah. It really, you know what? It's a lot of that has to do with, the people at the top. When you're talking about the administration, who I think I complained about earlier, just all the things you have to do. But if you have, and we've had a really amazing dean that just fought to get us a bunch of stuff in the last few years because, basically the guy who ran this program for about 30 years retired, and then the other adjuncts, the part-timers, wound up getting better jobs. And so all of a sudden no one was here, and they figured out, they hired me, but they hired a really great full-timer, David Trano. Hi, David, you're there. Excellent. And a couple of great part-timers. And we've built this up, from almost from zero, except we were left with a lot of good things. But the support from the administration is what makes these programs run, quite frankly. So, sometimes there are programs that don't look so hot, but it's not necessarily the instructors that are.
No, it's seldom the instructors. Yeah.
So, and now I have more students coming in, so I should put on my mask. If you'll
put on your mask, yes.
Because we do mask up pretty hard here.
Yep.
You know, it's nice to have all the ventilation and the UV and the PPE, so we feel really safe. But you get into a welding booth, and you know you're close enough, so we don't take any chances.
Absolutely.
Okay, they're all coming in now.
All right.
Oh my God, everyone's early. We're on Instagram Live. Hi, Victor.
Hi.
So
I love it.
It's really, yeah, everybody's good. So
we should probably let you go teach, huh?
I suppose. I mean, yeah.
All right. So final words before I let you.
Yeah. Why don't I? I'm going to walk outside so I can.
Before I let you go,
yeah.
final words from you. Yeah. What are your top words of advice to the younger you, or somebody out there who wants to do what you're doing or what you've done? What are your words of inspiration?
You're not crazy. You're not crazy. And just, just keep that one going for a long time, because you have to remind yourself of it more often than you want to, that might be comfortable. But it's what's happening. It's so good right now, though, because the trades, because there was this dip and everybody outsourced everything to different countries, and trade programs, went away. And so you have this, we're building from scratch, and everybody who's here, you are the trades. You are, this is what the trades look like. If you want to get into any of these situations, white collar, blue collar, at any of these industries, you are what we look like right now. You are the future. So, especially because you hear, you see a lot of, terrific old white men, in these things. Just because you don't look like them doesn't mean that, that you don't have something. They started somewhere too. You are exactly where they started, and it's the 21st century, and this is just what it looks like. So, all right.
I love it. I love it. Cheers to you. Cheers to that. Thank you so much, so very much for joining and sharing your shop space and your story. You are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. You're making a difference, and absolutely appreciate you. So cheers.
Oh, very much.
And go teach some of those kids.
Right. And I'm gonna show up at your shop one day.
Please do. Please do. You are welcome anytime.
So fantastic. I love it. Thank you so much. It's been a blast, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime. Okay. Cheers. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.